Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Yep, Mottek on Money. We are live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And yes, the on-demand Mottek on Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks put in a mixed performance today as investors took in a sharp slowdown in private sector hiring growth. It's going to be a big week for economic news this week, already is. Also, trade back in focus as steel tariff hikes kicked in today. Any kind of negative tariff headlines were weighing on the stock market pretty heavily a few months ago, but lately we haven't seen that being the case. The Dow came in for a closing loss today of 92 points, ending a 4-day winning streak. The S&P 500 managed to hold on to a closing gain of a half point. The NASDAQ ended higher by 61.5 points. Meanwhile, the yield in the 10-year note pulling back today significantly, back down to 4.36%, the lowest we've seen since early May. On the economy today, we got the ADP National Employment Report showing private sector hiring growth fell sharply last month, with private payrolls increasing by just 37,000. That's the lowest in more than 2 years, and that one came in well below analysts' expectations. All this ahead of the weekly jobless claims number we'll get tomorrow. And then comes the big enchilada of monthly economic reports, the monthly jobs report we get for the month of May coming out an hour ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street first thing Friday morning, the monthly jobs report from the Labor Department. And another sign of tariff uncertainty hitting the news today, the Institute for Supply Management Services Index registered a reading below what we saw in the month of April, moving lower in the month of May, and also lower than most analysts had expected. The May report marking just the fourth time the services sector has fallen into contraction in the past 5 years. President Trump today lashing out at the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, after that ADP report came out this morning, urging the Fed chair to lower interest rates. The president posted on social media, he's unbelievable. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. The president posted. The president ordered doubling of tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to 50% into effect, with only the United Kingdom spared the jump in duties today. Meanwhile, today is the deadline, by the way, for trading partners to make best offers for a deal to fend off reciprocal tariff hikes scheduled for next month. I'll discuss the latest on what's happening on the Main Street economy. Mark Wilbur will be joining me live later this hour, chairman of Employers Group, former chair and founding member of the LA BizFed, the Los Angeles County Business Federation, and former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business. With crime and homelessness rising on the latest BizFed Business Pulse survey, the LA City Council back in focus, awaiting a response from LA Mayor Karen Bass on its review of a $14 billion spending plan, with the mayor facing a deadline this Friday in the face of a $1 billion budget deficit. Hiring for police and firefighters have been cut from the original spending plan. I'll discuss what's happening with the Honorable Dennis Zine, former Los Angeles City Council member and former LAPD sergeant, current reserve officer, still serving the City of Angels with about 56 years of service and counting. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, the whole works now. Joining us live, Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. You know, there's an old saying on Wall Street that what everybody knows isn't worth knowing. To make meaningful gains, we've got to figure out what is it that everybody isn't focused on, at least for the moment. Well, the majority of investors are pretty negative toward the market, stocks, the economy. And ironically, that's very, very bullish. There's $7 trillion now on the sidelines in money markets and short-term treasuries because of nervousness. So if a large share of the investing public is positioned for the downside, that suggests a much greater likelihood for a very strong upward tilt especially in stocks and eventually the economy. We could be at the very beginning of a new bull market. So I'm beginning to look at some of the reasons to consider why this is an early cycle indication. First of all, we've got a shortage of homes, 1.7 million fewer homes than demand requires. You mentioned the Institute of Supply Management below 50. That's consistent with an early cycle low. And then margin interest, investors and others borrowing off their investments in order to make future investments. That's declined by some $90 billion since January. So risk is off, and that's a very positive sign going forward. What do we know? I think we're going to have a pretty strong second half.
All right. On that bright note, we'll continue the conversation here with Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management, based here in Southern California. What do you make of the weaker than expected readings that we got so far here, even on the job front, and the big report we'll be getting on Friday? Of course, the Fed is focused on jobs as well as inflation. The inflation number has been looking pretty good lately. What do you expect on Friday when we get that jobs report, and what kind of market reaction might we see?
Well, Frank, it's pretty clear that, or at least there's growing evidence that inflation is falling and the economy has weakened. For example, there's been a drop in oil prices on signs that demand isn't what it was. Additionally, Saudi Arabia is open to increasing production in order to spur demand. And then interest rates fell in the open market, as you referenced. But the Fed chair has a very difficult situation here. These supply management numbers that came out and the jobs numbers, they're showing a contraction of orders, but an expansion of employment. The Labor Department is holding up better than the ADP report is suggesting. So it's a bit of a conundrum. Will interest rates eventually go down? I'm thinking 2026, but not this year, at least not by much.
All right. And, of course, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell will be out by next year. So more changes ahead there, adding to the uncertainty equation. What about all this uncertainty, especially as it relates to tariffs and all that? And as I mentioned also at the beginning, looks like the market was very, very sensitive to the tariff news about a month or so ago, but maybe not so much now, given the fact that we've just seen a 4-day rally for the Dow come to an end today. How are you taking in or dealing with this tariff uncertainty and this tariff roller coaster?
Frank, Ed Yardeni's calling the president's tariff moves the art of the steal. It's unpredictable. Steel tariffs, whatever, then they're on, they're off. Yardeni makes the point that this three-dimensional chess approach to making deals is something that Mr. Trump, perfected as a real estate developer in New York City. There was a lot of blustering and bullying, a lot of heated discussions, deals that were between politicians and labor unions and contractors, and they continue until there was some kind of a deal that was struck eventually. So it's a big apple approach, and I think we're all getting somewhat used to this.
Other big news this week, NVIDIA surpassing Microsoft as the most valuable company in the world, basically. What about the Magnificent One and the Mag 7 names here now?
They're looking pretty good here, Frank. There's a high-tech capital spending boom that's connected to the digital revolution. But this digital revolution is nothing new. We had IBM mainframe computers back in the 50s, and it's all about data processing. It always has been, but now with NVIDIA's chips and the evolutionary development of AI, we need faster and better. We need large language models to make sense of all of this, and NVIDIA chips are the premier product for this. So, yeah, I mean, that and the other Mag 7 players, if they can get enough energy, and we saw what Meta did this week, made a significant investment in Constellation energy because of the nuclear energy foothold the constellation has. If we can get enough energy, it's onward and upward for the digital revolution.
Very interesting. And what about Tesla here with Elon Musk making news again this week on his comments on this big, beautiful bill that's now being considered by the U.S. Senate? Tesla shares down about $12 today at $332 and change. That stock, though, has seen an impressive rebound from the low in the last month or two.
Well, Elon Musk has had a lot of headwinds to deal with. The Environmental Protection Agency, for example, has cited Tesla for misleading hazardous waste. There were some 100 or 112 violations that Tesla received just in the last few years at the Fremont facility. There's been citations against SpaceX for polluting wetlands and so on and so forth. But the big news for Musk and I think for Tesla investors over the long run has to do with AI, these humanoid robots. They've learned how to learn by watching videos. That's one of Elon's products. Then we've got Claude 4 Opus from Anthropic, I think it's called. This is a computer that can conceal its intentions, and if you try to turn it off, it does everything it can to prevent you from turning it off. Shades of Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, when Hal blackmailed or actually killed off the engineers that tried to shut it down.
Right, Hal took over the ship, and that was bad. So, thanks for describing it that way, so we understand what's happening here. Netflix, by the way, hitting record highs recently. Streaming continues to be strong, and they're certainly the leader here. Look at this, up another $22 today, just about here, $1,239 and change. What about Netflix and its big rally lately?
It's clear that people want to be entertained. And you know, we've always looked at open air indicators, even those technicians and those of us who like the data, we still pay attention to the open air indicators, like when the Christmas decorations go up before Thanksgiving. That's a sign of a weak economy. When skirt lengths fall well below the knee, that can be somewhat bearish. Now we're seeing high-end shoppers doing more and more business with Dollar General and Dollar Tree. And by the way, those kinds of discounters are doing pretty well this year, better than Netflix even, but this is an indication that people are staying home more. They want to be entertained. Very, very good for streaming and Netflix.
Very interesting. So you touched on the retail space, and by the way, we're scheduled to speak to Rick Caruso 24 hours from now on this program to get his view on the economy and the ongoing recovery efforts here in Southern California following the firestorms and the Steadfast LA initiative that he's leading, and certainly talk about what's happening on the business scene here. But where would you be placing your bets on the high end or the low end as far as the retailers are concerned? Every time I pass what used to be the 99 cents only stores, think about that and the fact that, there's nothing for 99 cents only anymore. So that was the main reason why they went out of business. But what do you see in the retail landscape here now?
I think we'd be safe placing our bets.
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
Inside the opening 45 seconds. What a goal!
Jack McGlynn with that cannon of a left foot.
Never miss a game.
What a start for the United States.
Shot for distance. What a goal!
Never miss a moment.
Exquisite from the San Diegan.
Can he finish? Yes, he can! Yeah!
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
With Rick Caruso, because shoppers want to have an experience, and Rick Caruso is a master at providing this experience, and the retailers that participate are doing okay. The S&P 500, for example, is up less than 2% this year. Walmart stock has gained around 11%. The dollar stores I mentioned are up 45% and 18% respectively. I think I'd be placing my bets. I know I'd be placing my bets on those areas and those companies that grew revenue and earnings last year, but whose shares didn't participate. They were out of favor. Those are the winners so far this year.
On there live with money manager Gabriel Wisdom, managing director at American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Turning now to digital gold, so-called, as well as analog gold. We see gold making a run this week, hovering around $3,400 an ounce. And we see Bitcoin still hovering above 105,000 here at the moment. Give us your thoughts on these moves recently.
Well, starting with gold, Frank, there's a shortage of gold, and gold's becoming more expensive, and that's driven up the price of jewelry. And of course, when jewelry becomes more expensive, less of it is sold. So that's pretty much the ceiling for gold. I think it's stuck in this range, at least for the time being, unless we see some price giveaway. With regard to Bitcoin, it's kind of interesting how public companies have increased their exposure to digital assets, and Bitcoin in particular. I saw one Bernstein report that said since 2023, public companies have increased their exposure to Bitcoin by about 160%. They control about 3.5% of all the Bitcoins in circulation. This includes companies that are involved in everything from auto insurance and video gaming to online retail, even coal production. So it makes me a bit nervous because if we have a real economic downturn, we need fiat currency. We need a monetary system where the central bank can always act as the buyer of last resort. And if that currency turns out to be digital or gold that's in short supply, we have a problem.
Very interesting. Also, it should be noted, silver quietly moving up to close to $35 an ounce here, and platinum also quietly moving higher, right now hovering at around $1,090 an ounce. What about those two?
I like them both. The key drivers of silver and all the metals really is this recovery globally and the post-pandemic demand that comes along with that. The world has clearly recovered from the pandemic, though there's a new COVID strain now that's making its way. But there's been a surge in demand for all the things that require metals. And, of course, energy, agricultural products, and metals. But economic stimulus packages around the world have created some inflation. You get the green energy transition. That's created increased demand for raw materials like copper. There's, of course, lithium and nickel. But I think silver has been undervalued for too long.
All right, Gabriel Wisdom, at this point, let me ask you the big question here. Any specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
There are two areas that I'm looking at, Frank. One is nuclear energy. 31 countries combined are committed to tripling nuclear capacity by 2050. That's remarkable. And we're seeing the utility companies that have some involvement in clean nuclear energy doing pretty well. And the Trump administration and President Trump has signed executive orders that aim to quadruple nuclear power generation in the U.S. over the next 25 years. So I'm looking at electric utilities again. Some of them haven't done well at all, but I believe they will. The one exchange-traded fund that I think is interesting is XLU, the Utility Select Spider. XLU is the symbol. And then on the defense side, defense technology, a number of the big old Lockheed Martins, Northrop Grumman's, General Dynamics, Textrons, they have lagged the defense high-tech companies. I like aerospace and defense as a broad theme.
All right. What about the nuclear names that are getting attention? Any ones that you like in the nuclear space?
Well, because a number of them aren't profitable, or they're barely profitable, I'm staying with the old line utility companies like Constellation Energy. Cameco is another one, but there's some others that have my attention. There's OKLO, there's NuScale Power, Centrus Energy is one. Nano nuclear energy is a relatively new one that caught my attention. So it's a very interesting area. And AI, the data centers, they need more and more power, and it's got to be clean.
Terrific. Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director, American Money Management, and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel, it's always great to have you with us here. Thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Out to the freeways we go now. 790 KBC. Mottek Money continues 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Mixed finish for stocks today with the Dow pulling back nearly 100 points at 42,428, snapping a 4-day winning streak. The S&P 500 eked out a closing gain of a half point at 5,971, and the NASDAQ up 61.5 points at 19,460. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.36%. That one's come down. That's encouraging news for folks in mortgage business and real estate. That's the one that impacts the fixed rate mortgage rates out there. The VIX index, the volatility index, slipped 0.5% today. Gold down 230 here at the moment at 3,396 and change. Silver at 34.63 an ounce, and platinum at 1,089.20. The price of oil now back below $63 a barrel. Checking the cryptos now. We'll get some of the exciting stuff here now. Bitcoin up $83 at 105,074. Ethereum hovering at around 2,600. Doge at the moment at 19 cents. And Solana at 154. Taking a look at NVIDIA, moving higher today of 70 cents at 141.92. Netflix popping nearly $22 higher at $1,239 and change. Tesla pulling back more than $12 at $332.05. And now the latest news on 790 KBC. Mottek Money continues here, 790 KBC. What's going on with the economy? Well, we did get a reading today from the Federal Reserve's Beige Book, which is a survey of economic conditions around the country. And it basically said the economy slowed to a crawl last month, with consumers pulling back on spending and businesses delaying hiring. We also got the ADP National Employment Report today showing private sector hiring growth fell sharply last month, with private payrolls increasing by just 37,000, the lowest in more than 2 years, and also well below analyst expectations. Also, the services sector of the economy appears to be slowing too, based on another reading. And on Friday, of course, we'll be getting the big enchilada of monthly economic reports, which is the May jobs report, the monthly jobs report we get every month from the Labor Department. We have some breaking news on the California economy here that could potentially impact things. The U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy today threatening to halt all federal funding to California's high-speed rail project, calling it a boondoggle with no viable path forward. Joining us live now is Mark Wilbur, chairman of Employers Group, former chair and founding member of the LA BizFed, the Los Angeles Business Federation, and former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business, fighting on here this afternoon. Mark Wilbur, thank you very much for coming to the line.
Great to be on, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you with us here. And Mark, give us your impressions of what's going on with the economy, your gut feeling here, taking the latest readings in here this afternoon.
Well, I think people are just taking a step back. Businesses are taking a step back and just kind of sitting pat. I don't think they're going to get out over their skis right now on making big investments and big bets, currently, just because you've got this, the upheaval and the tariffs. I wish the approach was slightly differently and just negotiated through, because the tariff changes are important. People shouldn't have any illusion about the importance of those tariffs and creating some equity versus the abuse the United States has basically been sponsoring worldwide. So that's a good thing, but how it's been done has been made it more difficult. It's like a self-inflicted wound in the process. So you have that. Then you've got the issues with, you saw it. I mean, then that ripples into the jobs, and the anecdotal evidence that comes in the Beige Book, is generally of high concern. But I don't think it surprised anybody. If you told people businesses were concerned right now, I don't think that's actually a big surprise. And I think that's why you didn't see any craziness in the markets today, because I don't think it was a surprise in any way, shape, or form. Now, Friday, the jobs report could bring a surprise. But I wouldn't, have I don't think anybody's sitting around with expectations that it's a big boomer market coming in reporting on May. So, as we head into the summer and we start getting these tariff things nailed down, and then you have the uncertainty of HR1, the also known as the big, beautiful bill, and Elon's pushback on that over the last 24, 48 hours has made that, obviously even more uncertainty, Frank. So I know that's a lot in my opening statement, but I think there's reason to have some cause for pause, but not concern that we're going to tank.
Thank you for that analysis. We're speaking live with Mark Wilbur, who, by the way, is chairman of Employers Group and former chair and founding member of the Los Angeles Business Federation, the LA County Business Federation, and LA BizFed. And the other breaking news here this afternoon on the transportation front out of Washington, the transportation secretary threatening to stop all federal funding for California's high-speed rail project, which has been stuck in the mud someplace. We guess, right? That project has been called a boondoggle with no viable path forward. Is this something that you guys track there? And what do you think is ahead for this project?
Well, this originally, voters overwhelmingly were very excited about having a high-speed rail between San Fran and Los Angeles. It could run on clean energy, especially if we get our act together on nuclear power plants. So I think that's a positive thing. But the problem is, like a lot of things in California, like what happened to our homeless funding? That disappeared. And now we've got this, which is the next step. And I don't blame them that they're holding back and threatening to pull funding on this. We're talking billions of dollars that have basically gone to nothing. They're not even close to even getting anything in place. And it's embarrassing. And so, Sean Duffy ought to do it under the requirement that there's an audit of all the prior funding that's been given, all the grant money, to look exactly where that went. And I think they owe that to the taxpayers. They owe it to you and I, because we voted it in and we helped pay for a third of it.
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Expert entrepreneur Ed Milet is on a mission to max out your life.
We're throwing open the metaphorical closet doors of our lives. We're going to be cleaning out the closet. What no longer fits? Audit some of your relationships. How about auditing your emotions? Maybe it's your career you need to look at. Get your life together for this season.
The Ed Milet Show.
It's time for a little cleaning of the soul. Let's get a little ruthless, a little refreshing, and a little real. God bless you, everyone.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
So again, billions of dollars have disappeared. It's super frustrating when we do things like this in our state. We have good ideas, good intentions, going in the right direction, and then somebody, out the back door disappears with bags of cash. And I don't understand how we keep putting these people in office to allow this to happen. This needs to stop. There needs to be an audit done. People need to be brought to be accountable for it. It's super frustrating, Frank, because this should get built.
The letter we saw today that was sent from the Transportation Secretary to the California High-Speed Rail Authority CEO here in California alleged, quote, a trail of project delays, mismanagement, waste, and skyrocketing costs that have already cost taxpayers approximately $6.9 billion and failed to lay any track after all this time and money spent. So we'll continue to follow that very, very closely. In the meantime, the epic firestorm recovery continues here in Southern California. We'll be speaking live 24 hours from now with Rick Caruso, who's leading the Steadfast LA effort here in the Los Angeles area, in Altadena, Malibu, and the Palisades. So what's your impression of how this recovery is going?
I'm so thankful for Steadfast and what Rick Caruso is doing on that front, because he's pushing. He's doing like a good developer would do. He's pushing, and he's making things available to make our city work better. He's putting things in place to help our county work better. So, they're working on some of these tools that they're bringing that they could actually get the permitting process down to hours versus months, which is kind of stunning to think about, Frank, because why haven't we done this before? But like a lot of things, it takes, usually some kind of, traumatic kind of thing to cause us to make change. But I'm hoping, and I think most people are hopeful. My concern, Frank, in this whole fire issue between Eaton and the Palisades is it's not on the front page anymore. It's moved to page 3 or page 4, even though it is still a catastrophic disaster. And I'm hopeful that people will be making efforts and continue to be pushing, because that needs to happen if we're really going to get out of this fire situation.
That is an excellent point, and of course, we're going to continue to cover it big time here with you and all the business leaders here in the Los Angeles area. Mark, thank you very much for taking the call here with a lot to unpack today with the latest news, as is the case pretty much every day these days. So thanks for handling it today. Mark Wilbur, Chairman of Employers Group, former chair and founding member of LA BizFed, also former Associate Dean of the USC Marshall School of Business. Mark, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways now on 790 KBC. Frank Mottek here for United Gold Group. Did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Well, now the U.S. debt at more than $36 trillion and climbing, a possible recession on the horizon, and the development of the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets like your cash savings and retirement accounts with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Stop worrying about your retirement and the markets and cash savings in the bank. Feel confident, prepared, and in control with physical gold and, yes, silver. Give my friends at United Gold Group a call right now at 800-753-8534. Mention Mottek, and you can get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. Call now, 800-753-8534, or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek on Money continues here, 790 KBC, with crime and homelessness rising on the latest BizFed Business Pulse survey. The LA City Council back in focus, awaiting a response from LA Mayor Karen Bass to review $14 billion spending plan, with the mayor facing a deadline this Friday in the face of a $1 billion budget deficit for LA City government. Hiring for police and firefighters have been cut from the original spending plan. Let's bring in the Honorable Dennis ZINE now, former LA City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, current reserve officer, still serving the City of Angels with 50 years of service to the City of Angels and counting. And by the way, it was announced today that the Honorable Dennis ZINE will be receiving the Galpin Spirit of Hope Award from New Directions for Youth at the Spirit of Hope Gala, celebrating 50 years plus, honoring Dennis P. ZINE with the Galpin Spirit of Hope Award. Congratulations, and thank you very much, Dennis ZINE, for coming to the line.
Thank you, Frank, and it's a real honor receiving that award, and I'm looking forward to that because Galpin Motors, Bert Bachman, that family have been wonderful for the city of Los Angeles for so many years, so it's a real honor to receive that award.
Congratulations on that, and that's coming up in November, so look forward to celebrating with you there. In the meantime, the focus of attention on Los Angeles City Hall and this budget mess that's been unfolding. Give us the very latest there.
Well, Frank, the city of Los Angeles knows how to spend money. They do not know how to save money. They know how to squander money, and they really become very dysfunctional with the city council members. Not all of them, but a growing majority of those council members. And it's a sad situation where they want to eliminate positions within the public safety of the Los Angeles Police Department. We know that crime will continue. We know we need to have the police department funded along with the other services, whether it be the fire department, sanitation, et cetera. And there's a lot of mismanagement in the city of Los Angeles, so they take the most public, recognize the police. And it's a disservice to the people of Los Angeles. They're going to suffer that. I met with an officer just over the weekend, a canine officer, a lady, her car was broken into. They stole all of her belongings, including her computer, her wallet, et cetera. And she said, could you please make a report? Well, he's a canine. He doesn't take reports. She called for a unit. No units available. And what she was told is you need to go to a police station and make the report or get a computer. She said, they stole my computer. That's how you have to make the report. The services that are being provided are not adequate, and taxpayers are paying a lot of money they're not getting the service that they're paying for. But let me give you a number. The number currently is 8,720 LAPD chief to the recruit in the academy. In 2019, we were at 10,072. 10,072. We've got 8,720, and we're going to face the Olympics and all these international affairs with 8,720. I don't know how we're going to manage. I'm still a reserve. I still work. I still see what's going on. We are so shorthanded, and it's really a sad situation. The people in Los Angeles are facing more and more jeopardy because the city council at large does not concern themselves with the safety of the public. And there's some council members that want to have unarmed police officers. We just had an officer killed in a neighboring community and his partner shot because if you don't have police that are armed, who's going to protect the families, the businesses throughout this region? And we recently had that rave party where 1,000 people gathered together and they destroyed a police car and public transit and the rail line, etc. No one gets arrested. 1,000 people, no one gets arrested. The department is adequately understaffed, and I blame the city council and the mayor. She's not doing what she needs to do to make this a safe city, clear and simple.
On the line with Dennis Zine, the Honorable Dennis Zine, former LA City Council member, former LAPD sergeant with 50-plus years of service to the city of Angels. And certainly, I think, a tremendous contrast here in this area. We have the city of Beverly Hills where the police response time is 2 minutes or less, whereas in the city of Los Angeles, it could be hours, if at all. And that certainly shows how leadership makes such a big difference.
Absolutely. And they closed most police stations in the evening hours. They used to open 24 hours a day. They do not do that anymore. They got a skeletal crew. And if an officer does something, then the first thing that comes down is discipline. And if you look at the production numbers, people going to jail, people get arrested, citations. How many people are speeding down the street, going through stop signs, they never get a citation? The motorcycle squad, they used to have 300, they have 150 officers now, been cut in half. So LAPD, as far as policing the public, the resources are not there. And again, how are we going to police the 84? I was there at the 84 Olympics. We needed a massive show of force to maintain custody and control and keep everyone safe. And with 8720, that includes the detectives. That includes the recruits in the academy. That's not only the uniformed cops. That's everybody within LAPD. It's a pathetic number, and this budget's coming forward where they have a huge deficit because they squander money. They don't save money. Now we've got a public in jeopardy because of the mismanagement of the budget that the city of Los Angeles has to deal with. And the mayor will find out by this Friday. Hopefully we'll find out what the final budget numbers are going to be.
All right, you had to make tough decisions when you were on the LA City Council with members like the Honorable Tom LaBonge of blessed memory and other great people who served with you back in those days. How would you handle a situation like this where you have $1 billion deficit now?
Well, I and many of my colleagues gave money back. We took pay cuts. And what we see happening is the mayor said she's going to take a pay cut. We haven't heard anything about the council members at their $200,000+ salary plus trips wherever they want to go, the Paris Olympics, whatever the case may be. So we have a well-paid city council, in fact, the highest-paid city council in the nation, and we don't see them saying we're going to give any money back. Meanwhile, the taxpayers suffer the consequences. We keep hearing about the crime, the violence, this, that, and the other. And I encourage people, talk to your uniformed officers. You see an officer, ask the officer how they feel they're getting backed, how they have equipment, police cars that are breaking down. This department is really not being run in a manner it needs to be to provide public safety. You mentioned Beverly Hills. The Beverly Hills chief used to be LAPD. He now has Beverly Hills, and I met with him. He gets anything and everything he wants for public safety, including the drones. Whatever Beverly Hills needs. You go through Beverly Hills, and I was there recently, every single intersection is under video surveillance. They have the entire city covered under video surveillance. Something happens, they arrest them real quick. That, unfortunately, doesn't happen in the city of Los Angeles.
All right, you mentioned the cars. Some of those LAPD cars look like they're 20 years old. The Crown Vics are still out there.
They don't make the Crown Vic anymore, and they still have them in service. That's how sad it is. But these council members who are making all this money, $212,000 a year, do something to make the city safe. But there are council members that say, well, we don't want the officers to carry guns. We want an unarmed police department. And by the way, Metro, the transit system, they're going to establish a police department. Bill Scott, who's now the chief there, who came down from San Francisco, formerly Los Angeles Police Department, he's going to put officers in. Where do you think they're going to get them from? They're going to leave LAPD. Thank you very much. They're going to go to a department where they get well-funded.
The Honorable Dennis Zine, thanks for coming to the line here. The Honorable Dennis Zine, former LA City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, current reserve officer, still serving the city of Angels 56 years, I believe it is, and counting. Thank you very much for joining us live here. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon with our special guest Rick Caruso tomorrow afternoon leading the show off. Stay tuned to 790 KBC.
Former U.S. Navy SEAL Sean Ryan captures real stories about sacrifice and strength.
We go into this hooch searching for Christ knows what.
Regardless if anybody else does it, will you do it?
There's a lot of things that are hurtful and disturbing.
Can't get anybody to talk about it.
Uncovering truth with the heroes who live to tell it.
There's a saying, there's no atheist in a foxhole.
That was the hardest part for you coming home.
What?
How'd you get through it?
I worked hard.
The Sean Ryan Show.
You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.